More and more school districts are making the decision to add school resource officers in the wake of recent school shootings. Joining me live this morning from Cedarville University is education expert Dave Leitch to talk about this decision. Now, Dave, why are districts taking this approach in particularly to school safety?
Well, good morning. I think in general they're doing it for safety purposes. So then it depends on how you want to lay out the plan, the costs involved, what the benefits are in relationship to the cost. But overall, it's a safety matter.
I think every school district is looking at ways to make their schools safer. Do you think that this, though, is the most effective method?
Well, there have been a number of studies in regards to school resource officers, and there is a little mixed bag in that regard. There's been more reported crimes when you have an SRO on duty, but that is to be expected because you have that police officer right there. There's been a reduction in more violent crimes. There's been an increase, however, in things like disorderly conduct, that they're much more subjective in nature when someone is going to press charges and when a police officer would arrest. So there's kind of been a mixed bag in that regard.
I think school districts look at this as a deterrent for intruders, but as we saw in Parkland, Florida, there was still an active shooting even though there were school resource officers there in the building. Do you think that that is how these districts are viewing this, and do you think that it'll actually work when it comes to intruders?
Well, there's no way to know if it works in any given instance because it really comes down to the person. You like to think that if you were a teacher that when that moment came that you would be able to protect your students, and I'm sure SROs believe the same. But as you saw, again, as you referred to in the Parkland, Florida, that did not happen. A month later, however, in Maryland, the school resource officer, in fact, did go into the school and is credited with saving a number of lives. So it really depends on the person and what happens in that instance, and that's really hard to judge.
I spoke with one superintendent yesterday who said it would cost the district $1 million to put a school resource officer in every one of their buildings. How are districts paying for this?
Well, $1 million, it would depend on the school district, obviously. The larger the school district, the more likely it is for them to have officers. Oftentimes they start at high school level and then they work their way down. You figure each resource officer, they're paying a police officer salary, which is probably at least an experienced teacher's salary. So that there is a cost there. A lot of school districts do enter into memorandums of agreement with local police departments, and so they'll split the cost. So that's a very common way that that's done, large school or small school.
Is this more about having a law enforcement presence in the building or having a gun in school to stop any potential active shooter situation?
Well, in Ohio, I don't think it's a matter of having a gun in the school because you can have teachers, if they have their permit and the school approves, they can set up some mechanism to have that done. In fact, there's some local school districts that have done that. So I don't think it's necessarily a matter of the gun itself. I think it probably is a matter of policy in that SROs are already law enforcement officials, so the school doesn't have to train them. And in terms of overall supervision and some of just the payment and payroll kind of issues and personnel issues, they don't have to worry about that. I think that plays a large role into what a school might select in terms of their overall security plan.
Do you imagine school resource officers being as common in schools, say, as teachers or administrators here in the near future, where there's one in every single building?
Yeah, well, in terms of every single building, I don't know. But I can tell you that I don't think there's no doubt that you're going to see SROs in virtually all high schools at some point. Even rural school districts in Miami Valley have full-time SROs. Sometimes SROs are also part-time, so they may just come in for some kind of program with the students or help them train for emergencies, so they might not be there all the time.
Dave Leitch joining us this morning live from Cedarville University.